Hey everyone, this is Alex from Alex's Autism Awareness channel. It's a beautiful day, so I'm doing my video outside on the porch. But today we're going to talk about something very interesting. Does ethnicity have a factor when it comes to autism? So we're going to look into that article. Very interesting. But please be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video if you found this helpful, because I'm posting every day during World Autism Awareness Week. So be sure to stay tuned for more very important videos. Let's get into it. The prevalence of autism continues to increase across the United States, regardless of socioeconomic status, according to a new study. Overall, Black and Hispanic children are less likely than their white peers to have a diagnosis. The findings highlight persistent racial disparities in autism prevalence. White children are about 19% more likely than Black children, and 65% more likely than Hispanic children to be diagnosed. Autism prevalence in the U.S. has more than doubled since 2002. Researchers have looked into changes in the condition's diagnostic definition and greater awareness among parents as possible explanations for the rise. They have also assumed that access to good schools and medical care would explain much of why white children and those of high socioeconomic status are more likely than Black and Hispanic children and those of low socioeconomic status to be diagnosed. The new study upended many of these assumptions. The findings suggest that socioeconomic status doesn't fully explain the differences in prevalence across race and ethnicity. Everything is a little bit more complicated than we thought, says Maureen Durkin, lead researcher and professor and interim chair of population health sciences at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. We've been trying to understand the racial and ethnic differences in prevalence, and it isn't so simple as that it's explained by social class. Prevalence climbs. Durkin and her colleagues analyzed surveillance data from the U.S. Census Bureau and the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC. The CDC database includes health and education records for more than 1.3 million children at age 8. Of those, the clinicians identified 13,396 children who either had an autism diagnosis or meet the criteria for that. The team used census data on the proportion of adults with college degrees in a neighborhood as a proxy for social economic status. They stratified the results by race and ethnicity to determine whether socioeconomic status alters their findings on prevalence. Autism prevalence rose almost evenly among high, middle, and low socioeconomic groups between 2002 and 2010, the researchers found. The rates increased from 3.9 to 9.3 per 1,000 children in the low socioeconomic group, from 6.2 to 11.6 in the middle class, and from 7.9 to 13.4 in the high socioeconomic group. This was a surprise. The research team had expected that prevalence in the high socioeconomic group in 2002 was the true prevalence, and that the numbers for that class would stabilize over time, Durkin says, but it really didn't. Among the classes, prevalence roughly doubled in the three racial and ethnic groups. It rose from 6.7 per 1,000 children to 13.2 among white children, from 5.9 to 11.1 among Black children, and from 3.9 to 8 among Hispanic children. This suggests that autism awareness and access to services are increasing across racial and ethnic groups, but the prevalence among minority children still lags behind that of white children. So the final part of this article is persistent gaps. When the researchers looked more closely within each racial and ethnic group, they found that differences in prevalence across socioeconomic status either stayed the same or became smaller. For instance, The difference in prevalence between low and high income white children decreased over the study period. This suggests that low income white families are becoming more aware about autism over time, Durkin says. Among blacks and Hispanics, however, the gap between low and high socioeconomic classes remain level. Surprisingly, the rate of autism among black children in the high socioeconomic group was higher than that of among white or Hispanic children between 2002 and 2010. It's intriguing that in higher social class blacks, there's no shortage of autism, Durkin says. Black children are much more likely to be in the low socioeconomic group than white children, she says. The finding supports the idea that lack of access to diagnostic services contributes to the overall lower prevalence of autism in black children. There is no biological reason for autism prevalence to differ across racial and ethnic groups, says Catherine Zuckerman, Associate Professor of General Pediatrics at Oregon Health and Science University, who was not involved in the study research. The fact that we continue to see this in all our prevalence studies in the U.S. suggests to me that we really just don't know what the true prevalence of this condition is, particularly among minority kids, she says. Parents in some groups may be less concerned or aware about autism and may not seek out a diagnosis for their child, says Craig Neuschaffler, director of the A.J. Drexel Autism Institute in Philadelphia. Neuschaffler was not involved in the study, but wrote a commentary about the work in the same issue of the journal. Another study published this month suggests black parents report fewer concerns about social problems, repetitive behaviors, and other autism features than white parents do. Language barriers may contribute to the lower prevalence among Hispanic children. A study from October showed that a child's race or ethnicity isn't related to the time between a diagnosis and treatment. Parental age may also contribute to the disparities. Advanced parental age is associated with an increase in autism risk, and fathers of white children tend to be older than those of black or Hispanic children. Okay, guys, I think that's going to do it for the video. That was a very interesting article. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video, and I'll see you tomorrow at 12:30. Yeah, almost forgot the time. See you guys.